But a team with a growth mindset, they're constantly pushing boundaries. They're experimenting. They're learning from their mistakes. They're seeing every challenge as a chance to level up. So a growth mindset is super important for software teams. But how do you cultivate that? Is that something you're born with or not? Which I think is a really great question. And I think fortunately, it's not about inherent talent. It's not something you're just born with, which is good, isn't it? There's a lot you can do to cultivate it. Daniel Pink's book, um, Drive, really dives into the science of motivation. He highlights three key factors: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I really like those. So if you can give developers, any knowledge workers, the freedom to own their work, if you can support their desire to become experts in their craft, and if you can connect their work to a larger, meaningful goal, you've got a recipe for a highly motivated team. That's a lot more sustainable than just relying on, pressure and deadlines. Um, so, talking of sustainable high performance team, it's a good time to talk about Accelerate, which I don't actually have a physical copy of. I only have in audiobook format, which I just listen to repeatedly to program myself, to brainwash myself. But it is a really great book. And Nicole Forsgren's research really digs into what separates high performing software teams from the rest. And she's identified some key metrics: lead time, deployment frequency, mean time to recovery, and change failure rate. And it's interesting because those metrics aren't just about tracking progress, they're really powerful indicators of a team's underlying mindset and culture. So, for example, if a team consistently achieves a low lead time, it means they can get features and updates into the hands of users really quickly. And that points to streamlined processes, efficient collaboration, and a willingness to embrace change, which is so deeply important. So it's almost like the metrics are a window into the team's soul. They reveal how the team operates, communicates, and responds to challenges. Accelerate also emphasizes the importance of psychological safety. If team members are afraid to speak up, share their ideas, or admit to mistakes, it's going to stifle innovation. It's really going to um, block the team from being able to think creatively and be relaxed enough to innovate, which requires headspace, which you can't have if you're anxious the whole time. So you're creating a breeding ground for bigger problems down the line. Fear of speaking up is something we've probably all, maybe it was when we were more junior, we were probably like, oh, I'm not going to say that, or I'm not going to, and it really gets in the way of progress if you're just feeling blocked. You feel like you can't comfortably say what you need to say. You you're just afraid. Um, you eventually develop courage and you can get over that, but uh, there's never any intended malice or anything like that from anyone around you or from the organization. It's just how it's just about that primal fear of being judged or ridiculed. We're all sort of hardwired to avoid those negative emotions, aren't we? And that's where the chimp paradox comes in. Steve Peters' book talks about that inner chimp, our emotional reactive brain versus the rational human part of us. Now, I don't actually have a physical copy of the Chimp Paradox, but I do have a fantastic accompanying piece of um, literature, which is A Path Through the Jungle, which is actually a workbook based off the ideas of the Chimp Paradox. So you can actually use this yourself to grow and develop and learn to overcome your own chimp. Or you can use this workbook with your teams, perhaps. Um, so, uh, so Steve Peters looks at the idea of the inner chimp and how our emotional reactive brain competes with that rational human part of us. Um, so often the chimp can take over, uh, and that can really wreak havoc on a software project. Imagine a developer receiving some harsh criticism on their code review, and their chimp might lash out. They might get defensive, or you might get defensive, or even either of you might shut down completely. Or in these situations, if you're not careful, that chimp can just take over. And that's not really conducive to productive problem solving, is it? Or a healthy team dynamic. So it's almost like we need to train that chimp to play nice in the software development sandbox, you know? And the key is not to suppress those emotions or ignore them altogether, but to develop self-awareness and emotional intelligence. So you've got to learn to recognize when the chimp is trying to take over and develop strategies to manage those emotional responses in a constructive way, which is where this workbook might come in handy. Loads of exercises in it to try and help you with that kind of thing. Um, but generally, it's about creating a space for those emotions and understanding where they're coming from, and then choosing how we want to respond. And when individuals on a team can manage their own chimps, it creates a more harmonious and productive working environment. It builds trust,